Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident fanalist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_daddy. Well, I tell you what, man, I don't know exactly the words I used over these past couple days when I began to unveil this revelation that when you really look at it, it's entirely possible this Packers team is a heck of a lot better than maybe we're giving it credit for. Right? We talked about the quality of opponents that they've lost to, and not only that, the lack of anything other than elite quality opponents that they've lost to. Right? In other words, they haven't lost to terrible teams, bad teams, mediocre teams, or even good teams. Teams like, the Texans, other like playoff teams, things like that. I don't remember what all the different stats were, but it was starting to put a picture together where you kind of stand back and go, wait a minute. Is this actually a really good team? So the thought process for me, and obviously really good teams can have bad days and everything else, so you never know how things are going to pan out. But in my head, I thought, okay, you're a really good team. You're a battle-ready, battle-hardened, battle-tested, whatever, all the battles. You're a team forged in iron, right? If that's you, and you're coming off this Lions team, and that was a heck of a playoff, that was as tough as you're going to see all year, and you realize you can do it and everything else, we need to see you go up against the Seahawks and just be the better team. Whatever that happens to look like, you need to go in there and everybody watches and goes, oh, okay, the Packers are they're just on a different level. That's not to say necessarily the Seahawks are bad. It's not to say that the Packers are the most elite thing in the world. It is to say that there is the Packers, there is the Seahawks, and in between them is a gap. Because the Seahawks are a playoff team. That's not to say that they're guaranteed to be in the playoffs or anything like that, but they're right there. And in a weird way, they are like the wild card kind of teams, right? We talked about how that's kind of flipped upside down where the wild card teams are better, but they're like the more traditional wild card caliber teams. So if you are that team, right, if you are not just that lower end wild card kind of like, yeah, we'll let you in, but you're not going anywhere kind of team. If you're not that, if you're better than that, then you need to go up against that team, that would be Seattle, and you need to demonstrate that you are a tier above. Which you could argue they did that already last week when they were basically blow for blow with Detroit. And again, it kind of just came down to when the clock stops. Or maybe even the week before that or the week before that, they've been kind of on a run. But, there were all these kind of excuses. And that's kind of the point, right? We know that the Packers have been improving. I've been noticing it little by little, and I've been pointing it out to you little by little. Like, oh, Rashawn actually kind of turned a corner, just so you know. Hey, by the way, Jordan, he's been playing better. In fact, the last couple weeks especially, he's been playing pretty good, it seems like. Hey, you guys notice Christian seems to be actually really attacking the ball there? I'm impressed by that. Whatever. Little things. But then we scored, it was 38-10 against the 49ers. It's but they were banged up. It's like, first of all, still the 49ers. Second of all, 38-10 is crazy. I don't know if the Giants could put up 38-10 against a high school football team. You know what I mean? Then we did it against Miami, 30-17, and that should have been a big, alarm bells thing because Miami was really looking good, but it's I don't know, Miami. Miami. And then we go to Detroit, and it's we lost. So maybe we're not good enough, but it was close. And also, we scored the most points of anybody until this week when Buffalo hung a bunch more points on them. Kind of excited to see Detroit's second-ranked defense suddenly not so bueno anymore. Quick point on that, by the way. They gave up 40-something to Buffalo, 31 to the Packers. Prior to that, it was 26-6, 23, 14-14. You gave up 29 to the Vikings, and before that, it was 9. That's a lot of really low-scoring games. To give up double what you'd been giving up the last 8 weeks, twice in a row. I'm just saying. But we had an opportunity to look at that and go, I don't know if I'm really impressed by that game in Detroit or if I'm really disappointed about that game in Detroit. But it left me kind of going, I feel like something's good, but I don't know. And maybe the defense isn't very good, but at the same time, Detroit's offense is shockingly good. They look what they did to Buffalo. And before that, Miami 17. And you say, well, Miami, no, bullcrap. Miami was putting up 30 on teams, okay? So I don't want to hear it. 17. San Francisco, just 10. I don't care about the quality of the opponent. That's impressive. And then 19. Those are the 3 games that we had after the bye week. And before that was Detroit, just 24 points. Before that, the defense might have sucked. I don't know. Jaguars 27 and whatnot. But that's pretty impressive. And also, like, we have run defense now. I don't know what that's all about. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. But either way, I'm not going to say I needed, but in a little, kind of I needed. I needed to see the Packers come out and do what they did. I'll after this point, delve into the tiny sliver of negative, which on social media right now has become, I mean, I feel like we lost the game because people are freaking furious right now, and I'm arguing with people about stuff, and it's like, didn't we just win by a lot? I'm very confused. But no matter what little negatives here and there that you might be able to find, there's no question whatsoever. The Green Bay Packers are just on another level. So this is everything I needed to see. I don't know what that means entirely in terms of where they stack up against the Eagles and the Vikings and the Lions, but they are a very talented team. They are ascending seemingly every week, and they're getting hot at the right time. Let's very briefly talk about the negative because it's at the front of my mind because it's what I've been arguing with people on social media about for the last however long. I had a couple thoughts. I think I already forgot one of them, but just in terms of, so there was, as you may remember, a period where things didn't seem to be going as well as they were previously. The Packers cut through this defense like it was nothing, and the defense stopped the other team, and that's just what happened. We stopped them, and then we scored, and then we stopped them, and then we scored, and then they got a field goal, but it's fine. And then we scored, and then we stopped. You know, it was like that. And then we also got the ball at the end to end the half, and we scored, which is great. That's what I said. You want to make sure you score at the end of the half and at the end of the game. If you can do that, then you get an extra possession, and good for you. So that was great. But then things started to taper off a little bit. Okay, so here's the two things. Number one, what I realized is essentially what I and pretty much every other Packer fan that voiced their frustrations are saying. If we're being honest, what we're saying is, why can't you idiots be perfect? No, that's not what I'm saying. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Think about it. Last week, what was the complaint? They didn't start off hot. This week, they had a piece in the middle, and it was annoying because they took their foot off the gas, although they found the gas again. It like slipped off. They found it. They pushed it again. Many, many other games. In the second half, the team will start to fall off, and the other team will start to come back, and it's like, why can't you just finish out a game? It doesn't matter when that period of the team making mistakes happens. It's a matter of if it happens, I'm pissed that you didn't play perfectly for 4 quarters. And I know, I didn't say perfect. Well, you kind of are. Because how many things went bad in that very brief period? I mean, there was a pile, but what if you just took that pile and spread it out? It would be the same result, essentially. It would maybe be a little less frustrating because it's not this like thing that was like, why did this thing happen? Urgh. But it also wouldn't have felt like as dominant of a performance because in the beginning and in the end, it was like this, we're beating the crap out of this team. It would have been like, they slowly like picked their way across, whatever. You can't expect everything to be perfect. Matt LaFleur made some mistakes. Jordan Love made some mistakes. Christian Watson watched a ball sail right past his hands and was like, meh. There were a couple penalties. Honestly, not very many, but a couple. Those are mistakes. Offensive line started making mistakes, not blocking people, whatever, right? And look, it's hard to have a more measured perspective in the moment because you can't see over this little hump where you're like, they're going to pick it back up and continue what they were doing before where the defense dominates and they're going to score again and everything's going to be fine. You can't see that. So it just feels like everything fell apart and what's happening, and this is awful, and they're going to come back. That started to feel a lot better when Sam Howell came in because you watch him a couple series and you're like, I don't care if this offense can't do anything anymore because we're fine. But still, it gets to be frustrating. Why? And it seems, and this is where the next part comes in, depends on your perspective, apparently. There's a lot of people who hate LaFleur that just want to blame him for every freaking thing, and I don't know why. But I'm watching it, and I'm seeing a lot of concentration issues. I saw Jordan completely miss Dobbs. Then I saw Jordan miss Christian, although he was on the run. Still, he could not have been any more wide open. I don't know why you didn't hit him. Christian missed that pass. The offensive line can't block anymore. We cannot run. I want to say that again. We cannot run. To all the people that are, why'd you get away from the run? Because we can't run anymore. The blocking went to 0. We have a running back that fumbled. We have a quarterback that watched 15 seconds fly off the clock inexplicably to end the half, just watching it just flutter away. We had Jaden Reed drop a punt. You know, just all these things. It's like, why are you guys doing this to me? Why are you doing this to me? And I don't know why that happens, but it came in a flurry and then it went away and they tightened it up, and that's fantastic. Kind of tightened it up. The offensive line, I don't know that they ever tightened it up, but run game never really got going again. It happened last week too, by the way. First half we could run, second half, no more running. But can I just address the Matt LaFleur thing? I know he's already done his press conference and he took all the blame and he said it was all his fault. Clearly, the freaking challenge was the most idiotic thing I've ever seen in my life. I don't know why this keeps happening. Every time he throws the challenge flag, it's like, first of all, I'm pretty sure they already looked at it upstairs. They waited, and they're like, hold on, and they kind of just like holding everything off. And then they're all like, okay, yeah. Dude, that was somebody upstairs that saw, and you're still going to challenge it when it was the most obvious. Stupid. And I don't know if that's somebody upstairs that called down like, bro, for sure. Or if Matt's looking at it on the board and he just unilaterally does it. I don't know that process. But some of the complaints about Matt LaFleur drive me insane because, and I've said this 1,000 times, there's nothing specific. Usually, it's generalities. I'm looking at right now, the Facebook just happens to be open and the top thing says, I don't understand what happened to Matt LaFleur's aggressiveness. I don't know what that means. What do you mean aggressiveness? You understand that in the first half, all we did was run the ball, right? And in the second half, we were throwing the ball largely because we couldn't run the ball anymore. So what the hell are you talking about? It wasn't aggressive. You're telling me running the ball every down is aggressive and passing is what, passive? That's just fake. That's made up. The bottom line is Matt LaFleur had a team falling apart all around him, and he didn't have a run game anymore. Do you understand how hard it is to call plays when every time you call a run, you don't go anywhere, and you don't want to get away from the run, so you run the ball, and then you get 1 yard, and you're in 2nd and 9, when in the first half, you were in 2nd and 2. You want to know what happened to his aggressiveness? Well, I mean, aggressiveness is a stupid word to begin with, but you want to know what happened to the success? It's a lot easier to call plays when you're in 2nd and 2 than 2nd and 9. And it wasn't even 2nd and 9 toward the end there. We started losing yards on run plays. I think what I want from now on is to have people call plays beforehand so that we can gauge their success rate. Obviously, if they don't run the play that you call, it won't work. But we'll save that for later. So when you say, you should have run on 3rd down, and then when they run on 3rd down and it doesn't work, I can turn around and just flip you off. That's the extent of the conversation, by the way. I'm just going to give you the middle finger. What exactly was going wrong in that period where the offense and defense wasn't working that you can specifically say Matt LaFleur was doing wrong, other than just some abstract thing about aggressiveness, which doesn't even make sense because we weren't aggressive in the first half. We were just running the ball. He was just pushing the run button. He was calling the run play, and it worked because the offensive line was blocking well and Josh Jacobs was running well. Pretty simple stuff. Not aggressive, though. Not even creative. It was nothing. It was basic run the ball. But everybody wants to pretend that, like Matt LaFleur has success plays that he calls, and then when it doesn't work, he's not calling those success plays anymore. That's not what's happening at all. He's doing the same crap. It's just not working anymore. And again, now he has to call pass plays all the time because we can't run the ball anymore, and that's a problem. Because now the defense can tee off on you. And the offensive line, by the way, not doing a great job of blocking for Jordan. He's constantly on the run. He's constantly throwing off his back foot. That's not great. So, yeah, it's a little bit harder. Plus, you got, again, guys not catching passes, Jordan not throwing good passes, guys fumbling, like all those issues that I pointed out, those are now happening. So it makes your job even a little harder. It's also hilarious to me to be mad at Matt LaFleur for the fact that things weren't working. When some of the issues were, he had Romeo Doubs wide open and Jordan missed him. He had Christian wide open and Jordan missed him. He had Christian open and Jordan threw it and Christian didn't see it. Like, these are things that are happening that the offense just isn't executing on, that are very obviously successful calls by the coach that didn't get converted, and everyone goes, oh, the freaking coach getting conservative again. The play worked. What are you talking about? Finally, we have. I'm shocked that nobody remembers this. I have a terrible memory. I don't know how I'm the only person that remembers this. Am I literally the only person that remembers the fact that that running out of shotgun is a higher success rate than running under center? Did you guys all forget that? We went over this. This was a big deal. The Bears were on the goal line and they were going to win the game. And they lined up in shotgun, and everyone's like, why are you in shotgun? And then they ran it, and it didn't work. And they're saying, oh, why did you do that? Oh, you're an idiot. And everybody, including me and everybody else, we made fun of the Bears. Like, you're so stupid. And they had the worst offensive coordinator. This is probably like 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 offensive coordinators ago because they have one a week. But we all made fun of them. And then some Bears fans, because, Bears fans are going to be the ones that look into this, they looked it up, and they're like, actually, it's some higher success rate. And I'm like, no. Sure enough, looked it up. Higher success rate running out of shotgun in, short yardage, goal line. I don't remember the exact specifics, but that was the reality. It doesn't seem to make sense because you're further away, but it's true. But I go on social media and everybody's mad at Matt LaFleur. How do you do that out of shotgun? I can't believe it. Dumbest thing I've ever said. Guys, how am I the one that remembers this? By the way, do you know how many yards that... This is a weird thing where it's like the Packers are terrible when we run out of shotgun, and I don't know why we did. You understand running out of shotgun is what we do, right? And there's a lot of teams that primarily run out of shotgun. Josh Jacobs is one of them. We've got like 80 carries under center and 112 from shotgun. He has less than 300 yards running under center. Like 200 and, let me check. He has 275 yards running under center this entire year. 275. And you know why nobody realizes that? Because nobody actually pays attention and nobody actually cares. But then when something doesn't work, we just try to find a reason why it didn't work and then pretend that that's the reason and go off on it. We have no idea what the hell we're talking about. We've been running out of shotgun and converting third downs out of shotgun a lot. It happens all the time, and nobody cares. Nobody talks about it. But then we run on fourth down, and everybody notices it, like we've been sleeping this whole time, not paying attention to the Packers all year. And then somebody's like, hey, he's in shotgun, and everyone freaks out. Like, I can't believe they did that. It's like the first time they've done that all year. It's crazy. What an idiot. Everybody knows you don't do that. His rush yards over expected under center is 0.3. Rush yards over expected per attempt from shotgun for Josh Jacobs is 1.1. Out of pistol, basically shotgun, right? It's not under center as far as everybody else is concerned. Rush yards over attempt, 1. So very similar from pistol and from shotgun, have been more successful. Under center, less successful. The least successful of those three formations. I know you want me to sort by short yardage. If I had SIS, I could. I can't do that with NFL Pro. I just figured I'd look it up as best as I could with the stats that I now have to see if those things are still relevant. But it doesn't matter. Even if the stats have changed over the last year or two or however long that was, it doesn't really change the fact that running out of shotgun is not less successful than running under center. That's a wild misconception by people who just make stuff up. But again, let's get back to the part where we realize, why are we arguing about how crap of a job Matt LaFleur did after his fourth 30-plus point performance with one of the best offenses in all of football? It's bumpy. like it is for a lot of teams. And I don't know why anytime there's a bump, we just assume Matt LaFleur just chose to do the bad things. But whatever. Either way, this offense is absolutely dominating everybody. So if you want to, quote unquote, blame him, then I guess I agree. I would also blame him for the offense because it's a pretty great offense. Why don't we take a break? We'll come back, rip through some of the stats and whatnot. We got to talk about Edgerrin Cooper because good Lord. You know what I mean? But we'll be right back. All right, go through some of the stats here. Jordan Love had himself a fantastic day. I know I mentioned a couple things, but that was just, again, a very brief period of time where there were a couple mistakes. I don't know that anybody had a terrible day. I don't think maybe an offensive lineman did. We'll find out when the grades come out and whatnot. But Jordan Love actually had a very good day. He was 20 of 27, 229 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 74% completion percentage, which is crazy, and a 123.8 passer rating. Remember, he's also been above 100 passer rating, I think, that same stretch of time. So he is incredibly good over this past stretch. Whatever you want to cut off that period, I don't know. But what are we up to, 5 weeks now? He has been phenomenal. Josh Jacobs, 26 carries, 94 yards, 1 touchdown, 3.6 yards per carry. The stats are not that impressive. And again, I can tell you very easily why that is. Because he was very good in this first half, and in the second half, he couldn't do anything. The run wasn't working. But as usual, because that's not an uncommon theme, I don't think Josh Jacobs really did anything poorly. I think he took exactly what was there and quite a bit more in some instances. There just wasn't anything for him to do in the second half. He did have a fumble, though, that was fortunately not very costly, considering it was 30-13 win. But obviously things like that can absolutely bite you if we're talking playoff games and whatnot. So hopefully got to tighten that up a little bit. But only his second fumble of the season is what the announcers had said. Jaden Reed also, which is, again, hilarious. You want to know what worked today? Jaden Reed on the end arounds, which is exactly what everybody says don't do, but nobody wants to scream at Matt LaFleur when it works, right? Anybody want to run out and say you're an idiot for doing that? Nobody? Okay. 3 carries, 27 yards, 9 yards per carry, 13 yards was the longest. Emmanuel Wilson, 3 carries, 9 yards, 3 yards per carry. Chris Brooks, 1 carry for 6 yards. Jordan Love, 1 carry for 4 yards. Just want to bring this up real quick. Geno and Sam Howell. Geno had a pretty good day, 15 of 19. However, 149, 0 touchdowns, 1 pick. Sam Howell, 5 of 14, 24 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 pick. We got a pick off of each of them. That's fantastic, and gave up 0 passing touchdowns in this game. Anyways, on to the receivers. We'll sort by targets. Christian Watson, 6 targets, 3 receptions, 56 yards, 18.7 yards per reception. Again, aside from that little weird situation where he just wasn't looking for some reason, I thought Christian had a really good day. I don't know what happened with the other. So there's one he didn't see. There was the one he was coming back and Jordan didn't get the ball to him. I don't know what the other one was. Anyways, Jaden Reed was 5 of 6, 34 yards. A lot of targets, a lot of receptions, not a lot of yards, but I'm hopeful that everybody that was mad about Jaden Reed not getting the ball last week is happy this week. And then Romeo Doubs was the star of the day. 5 targets, just 3 receptions, but 40 yards, 2 touchdowns. That last touchdown was about as good of a catch as you're going to see. I basically refused to accept that was a touchdown until I saw that review. I mean, there was nobody, the announcers, the refs, nobody seemed to be concerned about it. But I'm like, I don't know, dude. I don't know, man. That ball was like on the ground when he got his hands there already. That would be almost impossible to catch that, wouldn't it? Sure enough, it is almost impossible. It was almost impossible to catch that, and he did. I mean, that thing was centimeters from the ground. And he got his hands under it and was able to like get the ball up, and so it didn't hit the ground, and just crazy. This is where I get back to, I wish these guys could just be consistent. I have seen greatness from Watson and Reed and Doubs and Wicks. If they were more consistent, we got 4 number ones on the team. It's just the fact that they disappear so often that it's like, well, I don't know. I guess you're two-ish, one-ish, two-ish, three-ish. Depends on the day. But fantastic day for Romeo Doubs. Oh, also, big pass interference, I believe, from Romeo Doubs. Thank you for that. Josh Jacobs, 4 targets, 4 receptions, 42 yards. Got him early and often. That was working really, really well. It's been fantastic for this team. Talked about it earlier in the year that the Packers wanted to get Josh Jacobs going in the passing game, and they have, and it's been great. Tucker Kraft, 2 targets, 2 receptions, 34 yards. Not the biggest day in the world, but he's still there, still contributing. That big free play 50-50 ball or 25-25, 25-25 ball, whatever. It's just a pile of people there. It's a beautiful catch. Dontavian Wicks, I thought looked really good. He was only 2 targets, 2 receptions for 14 yards, but the little bit that we saw him, I thought he did a fantastic job. He still really impresses me with his ability to turn upfield and get some extra yards. I don't remember the exact context of the play, but it was sort of a, Jordan was in a lot of trouble, just kind of flipped it to him. He was able to turn and get up the field and get a bunch of extra yards, so it's good to see him involved. And then Chris Brooks, 1 target, 1 reception for 9 yards. It's funny, they got all the scoring plays listed, so you can kind of see all the scores. And I'm looking at it going, bro, you are so stupid for being nervous. In reality, we've seen so many games where these games get flipped upside down in a second, although that hasn't happened to the Packers, really. They've done such a good job of just not letting that happen. But I'm looking at it, and it's like Packers score, Packers score, Packers score, Packers score. Oh, they got 3 now, but we have 14. Actually, we have 17. Actually, we have 20. But now they have 6. We have 23. But they have 13. Yeah. What do we have? Still 23? Yeah. Actually, 29. Okay. And then they scored? No, that was the end of the game. We got the extra point, but that was it. So it was never, ever, ever, ever close. No, not even after that first touchdown, it was never close again. NFL Pro also has some of the fun little next-gen stats, insights, and whatnot. Got a couple of them. So this one's about Jordan Love. Jordan Love was consistent in Week 15 against the Seahawks, recording a 57.1% success rate, his 5th highest in a game in his career. That's pretty cool. Love has had 3 of his 5 highest success rates of his career come in his 5 games since the Packers' Week 10 bye. Come on. Look, I'm not going to pretend success rate is the be-all, end-all metric, but you're saying 3 of his 5 whatever games of his career. Not that he has the longest career ever, but he had a heck of a stretch last year. What was it, like a 12-game stretch of being very good at football? 3 of his 5 highest success rates in his career come in the 5 games since the Packers' Week 10 bye, ranking 2nd in the NFL in success rate over that time frame, 54.4%. Love threw a season-high 33.3% of his passes behind the line of scrimmage while also throwing deep at the 2nd highest rate in a game this season. So we got 2 options, dude. I'm going to dump it off or I'm going to throw it right over your head. On the Packers' first 2 drives of the game, Josh Jacobs recorded 8 carries for 46 yards and a touchdown while gaining more yards than expected on 87.5% of his carries, plus 15 RYOE. Over the course of the rest of the game, Jacobs totaled 48 yards across 18 carries while gaining more yards than expected on just 33.3% of his attempts, minus 15 RYOE. Jacobs forced just 3 missed tackles on his rushes, but has still recorded the 2nd most missed tackles on runs this season. So, again, first half, everything was great. Second half, running sucked. Is that Matt LaFleur's fault? Maybe. I don't know. Packers defense recorded the most sacks and highest sack rate, 18.4%, on non-blitzes in Week 15, tied for 2nd most such sacks by any team in a game this season. So wait a minute. You're telling me the team that can't get home with 4 had 7 sacks, which I didn't even realize they had 7 sacks. That's freaking crazy. And the highest sack rate on non-blitzes in Week 15, which is tied for the 2nd most sacks by any team in a game this season. I understand Sam Howell was part of the issue here, is part of the equation. As soon as they put in Sam Howell and they were like, yeah, this guy took like more sacks than anybody last year, understanding that Washington doesn't seem to have a big sack issue, meaning probably not the offensive line's fault. Plus, as I've said 1,000 times now, guys that take a billion sacks almost every single time, the quarterback is a major factor in that. Immediately, my mind said, we might get a bunch of sacks here, and we did. Still, impressive. The Packers allowed just 5.7 yards per attempt on non-blitzes in Week 15, their second fewest in a game this season, and fewest since Week 7. The Packers' defense has now recorded the most sacks, 34, and highest pressure-to-sack conversion rate, 29.3%, on non-blitzes this season entering Monday Night Football. Hold on. Are you talking about, like, compared to other teams? I don't know what's going on. I guess 7 sacks moves the needle a lot. Let me just look at the stats here, because it's not going to have this week, but let me just see prior to. The Packers were 6th coming in, so they were only down by 3. Again, 7 moves the needle a lot. They're actually, they were 6th with 27 sacks with no blitzing. So they were already quite high when not blitzing. This may have changed weeks ago, and I just haven't been paying attention. Again, Rashawn and a lot of other, Kenny's been playing better, and Lucas Van Ness has been playing significantly better. Sack percentage when not blitzing prior to this game was 8th at 7.3%, still not terrible. And I may have just been looking primarily at pressure rate because it doesn't look like they were very good at generating pressures. So that would be where they had mentioned pressure to sack rate being extremely high. They were 27th. So there you go. Don't get to the quarterback as much, but when they do, they get him down a lot. All right, well, there you go. That's pretty impressive. Why don't we take a quick break? I want to go over the defensive stats. It'll just take a minute, but it'll give me an opportunity to talk about Mr. Edgerrin Cooper as well. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. All right, so the tackle leader, the guy who had the best day, which I don't want to say it's unfortunate because it's not. He had a great day, arguably the best day. Kingsley Enagbare, or Enagbar, or Enagbari, whatever. I could swear 2 weeks ago he said Enagbar, like when he's doing the thing. And I'm like, okay, it's Enagbar, whatever. I'm going to call him Enagbare anyways. I heard it this week, and I heard him say Enagbar, but I swear there was an E thing at the end. I'm like, wait, what did he say? Like, I thought it was Enagbar, but then it was like Enagbari. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Just more out of curiosity. I'm going to call him Enagbare anyways. Led the team in tackles, led the team in sacks with 2, and had 3 tackles for a loss on the day. Now, you could certainly argue that there was another guy who had a better day. Coming in second with tackles, he had tied for tackles, but 4 tackles and 1 assist, 5 total tackles. And he had 1 sack, 2 tackles for a loss, 1 interception, and 2 special teams tackles. I know that's probably cheating a little bit, but what a frickin' day from Edgerrin Cooper. And it's kind of similar to what I had said in the beginning, where it's like, look, based on my theory on the team, if we are as good as I am speculating that maybe we are, then what I need to see is us being better than the Seahawks, whatever. Very similar with Edgerrin Cooper. Last 2 weeks, we have been eviscerated in the middle of our defense. Linebackers couldn't handle it, just getting picked on all over the place. The hope is that Edgerrin Cooper comes back and that gets cleaned up. That immediately got cleaned up. I think all the frustration that I had in the pass game were like 20-yard shots down the field where somebody's left wide open. Usually it was like Evan Williams biting on something and somebody came open. I remember Edgerrin Cooper giving up a pass in the middle of the field early to middle-ish of the game or whatever, but he was like right in there. Like I was looking for the ball to see if he broke it up because he was diving and his hand was in the guy's chest. Ended up being a really good reception. But just the fact that he's right there and coulda, woulda, shoulda broke that up immediately made me think, okay, that's what we need to see. I don't care that he didn't. It would have been nice if he did. But what I want is competent football players that are able to do the job, and he did the job up until, the final little thing, which we're getting into luck territory at that point. If my hand is in there and it doesn't bounce off my hand, well, then that sucks. Beyond that, though, he not only had a pick, he essentially had 2 and dropped 1. And I'm being maybe a little unfair calling it a drop. I mean, he probably should have caught it, but it's not like it hit him in the chest and bounced off. He was diving for it and didn't quite come down with it. Didn't quite, listen to me. He didn't come down with it. But being in position 3 times and coming up with a near pass breakup, a near pick, and a pick, I'm excited about what he did in the middle of the defense. And I think, I don't know what Edgerrin Cooper is. I'm not going to jump on the bandwagon as much as everybody else is, although you guys are probably right. I can't do it because I don't know yet. But look, we learned early on that this guy is very good at making plays, if nothing else. I don't know about down to down, play to play or whatever, but immediately he's making an impact with sacks and all this stuff. He did some stuff early on that it really shocked me, which I remember it in college because I went back and watched him. I was really impressed and all this stuff. And so I'm glad to see that it translated, but it was just really impressive stuff. And you also have to factor in the fact that he's a rookie. Not that you have to get better. Some guys do regress after their rookie year. It's a weird thing. Everybody has their own little college arc or career arc that they go through. But you generally assume that right now you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants. You don't really know how to play football yet. Like you don't understand not just Hafley's thing, because nobody on this defense fully understands how to play Hafley's thing right out of the gate, but just NFL football in general, like how to do this, how to play for a Matt LaFleur football team or an NFL caliber defense or, whatever. Bottom line is it's hard not to notice the impact of Edgerrin Cooper. And as much as I want to pump the brakes and everything, the fact of the matter is Edgerrin Cooper, and I'm going to pick on Quay, which is a little bit unfair because he's been doing a good job with run defense and all that kind of stuff, but Edgerrin Cooper, on an average day, seems to be more impactful and more impressive than Quay on a great day. I like Quay as a blitzer. He seems to be doing a better job as a run defender, but Quay's one of those guys kind of similar to Stokes where you watch him and you just feel like it's not clicking. When you watch him try to, even in this game, there was a play where there was like a wide receiver screen and he just stood there. And he did that thing where it's like he's going to wait for you to come to me, but it was like a 5-yard gap, whereas most people, we see it with corners and stuff all the time, when you identify that screen, you sprint toward him, and by the time the ball gets there, you lay him out, but he's so scared of like the guy getting around him that he stood there. And he does that thing where he waits for the person to come to him, he plays goalie, and then he grabs him and drags him down. It's little things like that where you look at it and go, that is not what a high-quality NFL player does. When you watch him try to attack guys in the hole and he just goes the wrong way and misses, and it's like there's just something about really good football players that it's just natural. It's easy for them to play football. They just get it. They just do it. They just go. I think Quay can do a lot of really good things. And I'm not counting him out, and I'm very impressed with what he's been doing recently in the run defense and all that stuff. But what I'm saying is, and I'm picking on Quay, but most guys you look at and it's like you're not getting it. Evan Williams today, I mean, he hasn't been good. He had like 3 good weeks, and ever since then it's been like, what the heck are you doing? But with Edgerrin, he just makes football look easy. And the part of the issue for me is when I look at guys that are good at football, I have a hard time identifying what makes them so good, because my whole thing is what makes you better than anybody else. And so, you could look at, for example, that pass breakup and say, what, you're telling me Quay couldn't do that? Like he doesn't have the speed or he can't jump? And of course he could. But that doesn't bring into the equation the fact that he's in the right position to begin with. And the fact that he identifies it as quickly as he does, and the fact that he moves in the right direction at the right time with the right velocity and dives at the right time and does all the right things. It's hard to judge because you assume, like, if Quay had the mind of Edgerrin and did all the right things, does he have the physical tools to do it? Yes. But would he have been standing there? Would he have been up by the line of scrimmage as opposed to being back enough and reading the quarterback's eyes and doing all these things? I mean, look, sometimes good football players, you watch it and just like Jackson Smith and Jigba, I'm watching him and it's like, bro, he just ran a freaking slant route. Any jagoff can do that. But there are some subtleties, and I'm not saying necessarily with Njigba on any given play, but there are times when there are little things that you don't see, and it's hard to know what other guys would do, or they don't do those things. Same thing, too, when at times, you'll see a completion happen, and you're like, I don't know whose fault that was because nobody's there, and I don't know who's supposed to be there. A lot of those passes over the middle, a lot of times you'll have either the linebackers way far back or up by the line of scrimmage too much, and it's like, well, what were they supposed to do? They're so far away. Maybe they weren't supposed to be so far away, and maybe somebody else wouldn't have been. Maybe it's partially due to the play call, but also part of it is understanding situational stuff and being able to identify, okay, this guy's doing this and this guy's here, and so I'm going to, initially I'm going to come up, but then I'm going to drop because, you know what I mean? It's almost impossible to genuinely grade or identify these types of things. All I know is when Edgerrin's on the field, he gets lucky a lot. He just happens to randomly be in the right spot all the time. Same with guys like McKinney, right? Well, I mean, a lot of guys could have caught that pass. Yeah, but that dude gets lucky a lot, doesn't he? Some guys just get lucky more often than others. Maybe that's where the adage comes in, you make your own luck, There is a luck factor in the NFL. There's no question about it, but some guys seem to get luckier than others, and I think it has a lot to do with playing fast and putting yourself in the right positions. Make sure you are exactly where you're supposed to be. Make sure you react quickly and in the exact right way. If you do that, you're going to be a great football player. If you don't do that, all the athleticism in the world is not going to matter. And I hate to rain down on Brian Gutekunst too much, but this is why I don't like the whole athleticism thing. Now, I understand it from a standpoint of if it clicks, they're going to be next level elite. Because there's guys that are really good at football, and then there's guys that are really good at football and also are elite athletes and are better than everybody. So I understand that. But on some level, good football players are just good football players, and the limitations they have are not really going to matter. And guys that struggle with football but have elite attributes, yeah, if they can figure it out, they're going to be great. But I don't know how many Eric Stokeses we have to draft before we recognize it doesn't matter. Not to say they didn't have a great grade on him and all that stuff, but I don't know. I admire the living heck out of just good football players. You know what I mean? And I think Edgerrin, and not that he isn't athletic, he is. But there are guys that go to the combine and just have these blazing 40s that play linebacker, and they're not necessarily good football players. There's guys that jump higher, run faster, whatever, jump farther, faster three cone. Edgerrin's a good football player. And maybe if you're really good at identifying talent and whatnot, you can see the nuance. But I think sometimes, especially for someone like me who doesn't have that level of familiarity or that much experience with whether you want to call it watching tape or grading prospects or whatever the context is, there is an element to, even if you can't fully understand what made that so special, the fact of the matter is when you see them do it over and over and over again. Here's a really good example. I can't remember 100% if it was him, but I feel like it was Bijan Robinson. It might not have been him, but let's just pretend it was because it still applies. I watched Bijan Robinson, and I knew that he was a big tackle breaker. Like, he broke tons of tackles. It was stupid the amount of numbers of broken tackles. It kind of applies to Josh Jacobs, too. And when you watch it in college, one of the things that I'm trying to think of is, okay, but are you going to be able to do that in the pros? And so if you see a defender make a bad play, I'm not impressed by that, and I don't care. And the problem with Bijan was, at least in terms of tackle breaking, it really didn't look it didn't look like they did anything crazy. It wasn't like some crazy juke move or he lowered his shoulder and just blasted through somebody. Guys just fell off of him. They tried to make tackles, and they just fell off of him. They either bounced off of him or they tried to make a tackle, and it always looked like terrible effort. But over a period of time, you watch it and go, the odds that this guy is just the luckiest human being on planet Earth, and I am watching over and over and over and over and over guys make bad tackles, or he is just running and it just appears to be really bad tackling, when in reality he's somehow making that play because he's just such a sturdy runner or whatever the case is, where it looks as though it's a bad play on the other side when really it's just talent on his side. In other words, just because you can't necessarily see what makes it so special, the fact that it's happening over and over and over and over again should lead you to believe that something special is there. Full circle, Edgerrin Cooper. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know why they weren't able to throw in the middle of the field when he was there and why balls just go to Edgerrin Cooper when they didn't just go to Quay or McDuffie. I don't know why they didn't just throw in front of or behind him like they did those guys. I don't know why those things are happening. And yes, it's possible that these are just fluky things that are about to go away. But the guy is a playmaker, and it just keeps happening over and over and over again. He comes back, and immediately the biggest problem with our defense is instantly fixed. Again, it might be an issue next week, but 2 weeks in a row, for the life of us, could not stop the whole middle of the defense thing. And you're thinking, well, maybe Hafley's an idiot. Maybe it's the linebackers. I don't really know. Edgerrin comes back, not an issue. Not only that, throwing in the middle of our defense was a massive liability. It was probably the worst thing you could do. So I am excited about Edgerrin Cooper. I am hesitant, but excited for the future because, you know, I mentioned before, we don't have a lot of superstars. We've had guys that are superstars, but I'm struggling right now. I mean, Jordan appeared to be a superstar, and then, I don't know, he was good, not great. And then Rashawn was kind of a superstar, but I don't know. And you know, Kenny was several years ago, but this day and time, probably not. So, you know, it's like we got a lot of good players, but we don't have that Myles Garrett, you know? And it's not to say that some guys won't become that or aren't becoming that again, kind of coming around the corner, whether that's Rashawn or Jordan or whatever. But I'm a little gun shy, but hopeful that we could possibly, especially at the position of linebacker, because that's a position we've really struggled with. Also, there's just not a lot of elite linebackers, period. But the prospect of really having one, even if it's not a premium position, I don't care. It just really excites me, especially for a team trying to build an identity about being a more tough and physical team. It's hard to do that if you have bad linebackers. We saw that last year running, you know, the Joe Barry defense with Quay and whatnot. Just couldn't stop the run. And again, I don't know if that was Barry telling them to be hesitant or what, but it was just very weak all the time. And now we see more aggressiveness coming downhill, smacking people in the mouth, and it just feels a lot better. And as much as, you know, we talk about how they're low value position, I tell you what, if you have good linebackers, it's hard to run against them. If you have good linebackers, they take away a lot of the field as far as passing. So we can call them low value all you want, but you get some really good linebackers in the middle of the defense, that's a tough team to play. But excited about that. Keyshawn Nixon, I didn't think he had the greatest day. I know he had a couple good plays mixed in there, but there were a couple times when I was like, bro, what are we doing here? There were 2 penalties, though. I think both of them were... One of them was garbage. Both of them might have been garbage, so that kind of tainted my view of Nixon because he had the 2 penalties, but both of those probably should have been thrown out. But he had 3 tackles as well as a tackle for a loss. Otherwise, Rashawn Gary, they credited him with a sack as well as a tackle for a loss, although I think they credit sacks as tackle for a loss. Brenton Cox with a sack. Valentine with an interception. Hilariously, he drops a... It was the emotional swings that I had with Valentine in those 2 plays where he dropped an interception and I got mad at him. And then he caught an interception and I was excited with him. And then he ran it out of the end zone and I was mad at him again. It's just nonsense. But I'll take it. We'll call that a win. Wyatt with a sack. Carl Brooks with a sack. And I think that's about it. Special teams... We got tackles from Van Ness, McDuffie, Rochelle, McKinney, Wilson, McManus, interesting, and as I mentioned, Edgerrin Cooper, special teams player of the day with 2 special teams tackles. PFF also, we'll switch over to here real quick, has pass deflections. They have 2 pass deflections for Edgerrin Cooper, 2 for Carrington Valentine, 1 for Kenny Clark, and 1 for Aaron Mosby. I think they're including interceptions as pass deflections, but still add another 1 for Edgerrin Cooper with an additional pass deflection. So I mentioned the one he didn't deflect. Apparently there was another one he did deflect. So good Lord. They also, by the way, had Edgerrin Cooper leading the team with 7 tackles. So not even close who the best player in this game was, according to PFF. Going over their recap real quick before we get out of here. Green Bay Packers built an early lead behind running back Josh Jacobs and never looked back, cruising to a 30-13 victory over the Seattle Seahawks. Despite a late push from Seattle, Green Bay controlled the game from the start, rolling down the field easily on their opening drives. Just like last year, Jordan Love appears to be playing his best football when it matters most. The Packers quarterback went 20 of 27 for 229 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, recording 1 big-time throw and 0 turnover-worthy plays. His highlight came late in the game when he trusted number 1 receiver Romeo Doubs to win a contested battle near the end line. Love delivered a perfect ball, and Doubs made one of the catches of the season. It was a different story for Seattle. Quarterback Geno Smith started strong, completing 15 of 19 passes, but then threw a pick and took 3 sacks. Smith ultimately left the game with a knee injury. Howell struggled, completed 5 of 14 for 24 yards and a pick. PFF, blah, blah, blah. All right. Highest graded players. Here we go. First of all, top 3, all Green Bay Packers. Let's start from the bottom. Number 1, TJ Slaton. Love to see it. Don't know if he's been at the top at all this year. He kind of usually hovers in the middle, sometimes bad day, bad to mid. Glad to see him there. Number 2, Carrington Valentine. Just as I got done talking about how Valentine and Stokes are very similar and we blow it out of proportion, well, here comes Valentine with a 90.2 PFF grade. These are subject to change, by the way, that changed wildly from what they were last week. But then we get one of the best grades I've seen a Green Bay Packers player have all year. Very rare how good this grade is. Edgerrin Cooper, Green Bay Packers, 95.5 PFF grade. That is about as perfect as you're going to get, which reminds me, it's very funny. Edgerrin early in the season had a really highly graded game too, and I went back and watched it, and I just remember watching it and say, I don't remember ever where a guy, every single time he's on the field, I don't remember exactly how I phrased it, but it was something to the effect of, he just did the perfect thing every single time. I don't know if it was that or it was like he made a big play every time or what it was, but it really was one of the more flawless performances I've ever seen. It wasn't a ton of snaps, talking early in the season. I don't know how many he had in this game, but it was shocking. It was like, how can you just be that perfect? I think it was big plays. It was just like, how are you always the guy? Like he'd be out there, pass, breakup, tackle, whatever the case would be, just crazy. So with the 95.5 grade, it is as good as advertised. Again, this is subject to change. I doubt it changes a ton. Should probably be elite still by tomorrow, but we will find out tomorrow about that. But, man, that feels good. That feels really good, and we need him back. Just imagine Edgerrin Cooper and Jair out there. Get Jair and elite Carrington Valentine going. Although we got to get Nixon out of the slot, don't we? I don't know, whatever. Anyways, I got to go to bed. It is after midnight, so you guys have a good rest of your day. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.